Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this fireside chat. On behalf of our team at AI School of India, I would like to welcome everyone here. My name is Aishwarya, and I'll be the moderator for the session. Now, I would like to talk a bit about our AI School of India. AI School of India is an online, self-directed and tutor-led platform providing AI and coding to Indian students, teachers and in K-12 schools. We offer AI experience to students and seek to empower children to explore, learn and create with AI in an age-appropriate environment. We are a team of educators and technologists committed to helping students explore and understand the fundamentals of AI and coding and the role that plays in our daily life. Our founders and governing board have been involved with education and computer science for decades. The commitment to both the educators, students, and parents has led us to conduct events such as AI COVID Warrior Contest. The COVID Warrior Contest is a free competition. It is an AI for Good mission to encourage students from all over India to come up with innovative solutions using artificial intelligence to combat the current COVID 19 pandemic. I hope you all will have a wonderful and enlightening session as we listen to the fireside chat on digital vaccine by our distinguished panelists. Our host for this session is Ms. Aditi Prasad. She is the CEO of AI School of India and AI World School. A little more about Ms. Aditi. Aditi Prasad has a law degree from Indian Law Society, Pune, and a master's in public policy from NUS, Singapore. One of the initiatives that Ms. Aditi holds close to her heart is called Indian Girls Code. She was invited to be the keynote speaker at UNESCO's Policy Forum Cracking the Code, Girls' Education in STEM, which was held in Bangkok in August 2017. TEDx Chennai and TEDx Mumbai has also invited her to talk on Indian Girls Code initiative in the years 2018 and 19. She was also honored by Government of Singapore in September 2017 to be one amongst 15 young societal leaders selected from all around the world for a global leadership event. Thank you, Ms. Aditi, for joining us. And our guest speaker is Mr. Bhargav Sri Prakash. He has an impressive set of accomplishments. He is the founder and CEO of Friends Learn, a life science and health technology startup which is headquartered in San Francisco, California, and it also has an office in Chennai, India. He is the inventor of digital vaccines through neurocognitive computing. He holds 4 US and worldwide patents in advanced simulation technologies, immersive VR, AR, MR, and AI technology. Recently, he was the co-chair of the 2021 NASSCOM Product Conclave for Healthcare and serves on the jury and board of members of NASSCOM Deep Tech Initiatives. He has a BE in Mechanical Engineering from the College of Engineering, Guindy at Anna University. His deepest passion is to channelize capitalism towards solving societal problems, especially the health of future generation and that of our planet. He was also a professional tennis player on ITF ATP Tour and a junior national champion that represented India in his teenage years. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav, for joining the session. We also have with us my colleague, Mr. Harish. He graduated in 2015 as a mechanical engineer from Anna University. He is passionate in robotics and he has been working on 5 international educational robot development projects. He is leading the development team at AIWS. He has rich experience with AI and deep learning. and he is also the lead designer for the driverless car. Before we begin the fireside chat, I would like to lay down some ground rules. As the session progresses, audience will have some doubts. I would request you to type in your question in the chat box and make sure you also mention to whom you are posing the question. Our moderator will keep track of the question and we will handle all the questions at the Q&A session after the demo. Thank you. Now I hand over the stage to Ms. Aditi. Over to you, Ms. Aditi.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for the warm welcome and introducing us today. And welcome everyone to this webinar on this fine Saturday evening. Hi, Bhargav, really good to have you here. I'm excited to learn more and hear more, as always, about your journey, what digital vaccines are, and so much more. So I just really want to dive in right now. I was reading about you and the digital vaccines on one of the platforms, and I saw there's a little line that I would like to read out here to kind of start with. It says that you have a renewed obsession to protect the health of our future generations, and that especially with the last 1 year where we've seen COVID-19 and the kind of impact that it's had on communities and societies around the world. It's something that I think we need more of. So my first question to you is, can you tell us your journey? Like, how did you come here? How did you think about the digital vaccine? Over to you.
Well, thank you, Aditi. Thank you for having me here and to be a part of this conversation and all the great work that is happening with AI World School. And congratulations, and excited to be here in front of everybody. So, my background, I grew up in Chennai in India and, did my undergraduate degree. I'm actually a mechanical engineer by training. I studied at College of Engineering, Guindy. And then I went straight after my undergrad. I left to the US. At that time, I had a passion for racing cars as a mechanical engineer. And so there was a few of us that used to tinker around with cars and try and do what we could here. But following that passion, I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor in the US. I had a fellowship to do research in what is called computational fluid dynamics and thermodynamics. So mostly theoretical energy transfer, mass transfer, maths, physics, chemistry, but applied to the auto industry. I landed up in Ann Arbor, and over the course of my master's work, my research got spun out of the university. And so I serendipitously became an entrepreneur or a founder, and really fumbled through that process, basically commercializing these advanced simulation tools that I was researching as a grad student. It helped car companies do simulation-based engineering and optimization of fuel economy, performance, and emissions. And that company got acquired. So I joined General Motors after that briefly. And then I got anxious to try and start and create something again. I started a virtual reality company in education. And this was in 2005, 2006. So we were essentially creating a VR platform to help American universities recruit students. And what it was a virtual campus, so fully photogrammetry. So we were working in all these areas of what has now become AI and what has become immersive technology, but specifically towards giving students or prospective students the opportunity to be immersed into a campus, and that too on a before smartphones, believe it or not. So we were running on PCs and Macs, and people could download this and explore a campus. And it was multiplayer, so you could go on a guided tour, on a scheduled guided tour, and go and meet other friends and play these games on the campus and eventually fill out an application. And then that VR platform, is probably quite ahead of its time, because virtual reality is only now coming to become a more mature ecosystem. That company was used, or the technology was also used for emergency response training, as well as for alumni relations and donor relations by universities. And that company also got acquired. And then I got wanted to try something else in a completely different area, mostly in finance. We were using algorithms to be able to trade and basically make investments using algorithms. And over 2-3 years, we got started around the financial crisis, the famous Lehman Brothers and Wall Street crisis, and then the world changed very quickly in a couple of years. But I can't believe it was only 2-3 years that we did that. But the world was completely upside down. But I got to start thinking about health, specifically after becoming a parent, and realizing how much of our world is actually designed or profits from selling processed food to young children. So my daughter, even before she could speak, was getting all these highly targeted ads from processed food all over the place. And before she could understand the world, she was already recognizing her favorite cartoon characters, whether they were Dora or Peppa Pig, in between episodes of YouTube, and seeing it on, in the grocery aisle as we were going grocery shopping and asking for those things. So that was, I realized, a case of where capitalism had taken things too far, because those were the seeds of diabetes and heart disease and hypertension and cancer, and now COVID also. So I didn't want to be just upset about it. I said, okay, I got to go back to being an engineer, trying to solve that problem. But it's been a long journey, and we've since that time, almost 9-10 years, really worked on some incredible science, on neuroscience, with fundamental discoveries in terms of how the brain develops. And we've evolved this idea of digital vaccination. So how can we use AI and neuroscience to prevent disease? And we've evolved this technology based out of Carnegie Mellon University. So that's kind of what we're doing. And now we're, after 10 years of fundamental science, we're bringing it into the real world. One of my goals is to make it relevant to global health. So we've done several randomized controlled trials and proven, like this was a vaccine, how AI could actually be used in the real world to prevent disease. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we started and where I am today. But yeah.
Fantastic. Like two really key takeaway points from what you've just said that I can kind of see as number one, that you said you started with mechanical, and how you've kind of gone from being a mechanical engineering student, and how it's using and learning different skills, but really solving problems to like real world problems that are out there. And the second one is, again, health issues, especially with kids. And, how do you look at it from different viewpoints, and how do we create different solutions to kind of tackle this problem? Being a mother also, it's completely relevant. But we see also how global health is going and where we want to go with that. So, Bhargav, really tell me, what is a digital vaccine? Simple. What is it?
So I just want to share my screen so you get some context. So a digital vaccine is really about technology that is proven like traditional vaccines. So vaccines. So today there are a few things that are happening as far as major trends in medicine. There is a convergence between technology and medicine, unlike ever before. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing the FDA actually recently approved a game developed for children to treat ADHD. So this was a groundbreaking landmark kind of evolution of what is called digital therapeutics. So digital medicine means that in the future, it's not only pills that we would be prescribed by doctors, we could also be prescribed technology. This is based on the same approach to developing drugs or vaccines in our case. Now, we have applied AI and technology towards prevention. which means how do we read right to the brain non-invasively using VR as kind of a delivery mechanism and immersive technology. But through AI, how do we then influence biomarkers? And how do we improve A1C numbers, blood glucose numbers, even antibodies relating to COVID? So this center has been established at Carnegie Mellon University. It's you can look it up online. It's cmu.edu, and then digital vaccine. If you type that into your search engine, you'll find it. But I just wanted to show you kind of the center that it is based out of. So we serve as kind of the research, translation, and innovation partner as we set up this center at Carnegie Mellon University. And then what we've also done is partnered with several institutions around the world. So Bloomberg School of Public Health and Johns Hopkins ran a trial with us, and we actually brought them to India and ran a randomized controlled trial to show that we have a way to influence what is called the gut microbiome. So there's trillions of bacteria that live inside our intestines, and our health is actually a function of that ecosystem. So through the brain and then through the gut, we are now able to basically affect so many aspects of health at the biomarker level. And so that's broadly what digital vaccines is, and how it works, and essentially it is vaccines using technology, which will have no needles. It'll be delivered as software, but it'll be proven for safety, for efficacy, for ethics, for effectiveness. So the one major thing we're doing now, which we've announced and we're doing in India, is a digital vaccine for COVID. And so we're running massive trials with over 30,000 children across India as well as in the US. With this candidate of technology basically prevents COVID without injecting anything into the body. So that's where digital vaccines is heading, and so I wanted to give you an overview of what that was all about.
So just to follow up with your COVID-19 project, could you give us a little bit? Can you give us more of an example of how that works, and what exactly is going on ground here in India? And
yeah, so we're so there are a few things. Like one is that we've developed this module of neurocognitive training, and how that really affects children is through gamified content. So this platform that we've developed called Fuya is really kind of a front end that delivers this neurostimulation, and this is delivered on an iPhone or an Android device or even a computer, and it feels like gaming to kids, but it's really mapped to what is the world's only at this time medically proven, clinically proven health education curriculum. And it's powered by AI in the background. So there's a lot of gaming and a lot of sequences and lots of content that gets created by a neural network at the back end. And children continue to complete tasks on a weekly basis. And as they complete tasks and progress with it, we've been able to show that we can change what they eat, change how their brain functions, what neurochemicals get released in the brain, and how that affects the immune system, and how that increases white blood cells in the blood, which is kind of the frontline defense of the body against any infection. But we've basically figured out how to generate like antibody response level improvement to prevent COVID. So what we're doing now in India, we have a partnership with an NGO in India, and we're using it in a lot of government schools, and it's also open for a crowdfunding campaign. So we have something open on giveindia.org, and the foundation is called the Reciprocity Foundation. But we're actually implementing this in government schools, both here in Tamil Nadu and in Karnataka. and really tracking these children over a period of about 6 months to a year. And why this is super important is because there are no vaccines for young children. The second and the third wave has already affected children, and they expect that future mutations may cause other issues, complications, even if it is not directly COVID symptoms. There are long COVID symptoms and inflammation-related complications that we want to certainly protect our children from. So this is a way by which we're getting this in the hands of Indian children, as we do this in America as well. So if any of you want to learn more about this or participate or contribute or support in any way, you can certainly go and participate and be a part of this movement in digital vaccines.
Super. That's really great. So Bhargav, how are these digital vaccines being implemented in schools? So what are the kind of programs that you have? What are the age groups? And what is the kind of implementation strategy that you have over the ages that you work with?
Yeah, so far it's only mostly been a research-based initiative, Aditi. So we are, digital vaccines are all about evidence-based medicine. It's about safety, it's about ethics, it's about ensuring that we can be relevant to every child. And the thing about vaccines is that it is given to healthy people, as we know, because vaccines are now a household topic because of the pandemic. So we've been thinking about how to make vaccines out of technology for the last 10 years, but now it's become so much more relevant. But the way the program gets implemented in schools is it's a health education curriculum. So kids are basically given access via a mobile device, and they complete weekly tasks. And so the school sets aside about a half an hour to maybe 45 minutes a week, and the class participates in this activity. So it is used as a co-curriculum kind of a program. Because it's all AI and software generated, everything from the content is highly personalized and precisely mapped to that one child to stimulate their brain in a specific way. But there are social mechanisms by which kids can be on a leaderboard and can participate and play with each other, see each other, engage with each other. So it's a social fun experience. But beyond that, the school gets testing. So the testing and everything is built into the platform. The school basically just administers it. So the teacher basically reminds the children or sets aside half an hour a week, and the kids will complete those tasks and then move on to the next set of tasks. It's age specific. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. So every year has like content mapped in an age appropriate way. And what this is really digital vaccines is really about triggering the power of the subconscious brain. So we're not directly overtly telling the children or educating children about health. It's really getting them to implicitly being trained and learning what are healthier habits for them through experience. So they go about playing the game as if they think it's just another game, and then we deliver the medical benefits as a result of it. So parents get updates about the progress. Parents can also participate and see how their children are progressing. So can the school and the teachers. But it doesn't require any subject matter expertise on behalf of the school. So nobody has to be a doctor. You don't need to be a nurse to administer it. It's all self-administered. And AI basically guides a child through this whole platform.
Yeah, and I guess it's so fun that any child is going to want to play and kind of get immersed into that world of gaming and not know that it's changing.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing these days, right? Like I think we have the bar to be able to hold the attention of a child is so high. It's either Disney or Minecraft or Fortnite or PUBG or whatever it is that kids are playing, and so or Roblox. So we want to be able to speak their language. We need to be able to compete stroke for stroke in terms of entertainment and engagement value. But our goals in terms of gamification is that, and the way we approach how we design, implicit learning is we do what is called learnification, which means it's entertainment first for the child, and then the actual medical value or the neurocognitive training is so deeply embedded, it's almost camouflaged. So the child is not even thinking, because that's how we can access their subconscious brain, which is responsible for our behaviors, our preferences, our food, our diet, our habits. So we're really focused on what is called neurobehavior transference. And as a child starts eating more healthy, gaining better nutrition, we're able to change their biomarkers. So we're able to change their gut microbiome. We're able to change their WBCs, their A1C numbers, their blood sugar numbers. So they become a much more healthy individual. And even their cognitively, they become much sharper because they're getting more nutrition, better nutrition, and over a period of time, just being protected from a health perspective.
Right. It's like a very positive use of technology. So what happens once a child is immersed into such a program, and, is it structured in a way that it kind of grows with you? Like, so where does it go year on year, and how does that kind of, where does it grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as you know, every child, every year of a child's life is like a big progress from a cognitive development perspective, from a memory perspective, from a cognitive processing perspective. And so we basically designed this to map towards a curriculum, really. So pre-K, we actually have modules for pre-K children. So they are very simplistic kind of exposure. Obviously, a 3-year-old child has limited motor control and hand-eye coordination and things like that. So based on that, they get content. As a child becomes older, the neurocognitive training is kind of embedded into more sophisticated and more challenging mechanisms, and they get slowly more exposed to deeper aspects of health. But the idea is still the same, that from the time the child is ready and able to engage and attend preschool, all the way through they are in 12th grade, we think the digital vaccine platform will evolve so that it can address other topics of health in the same way, the rigorous scientific way that we built into the platform. So the whole idea is that it starts from 2-3 years of age, and then stays with the child in an age appropriate way, lowering their risk. So it's really their AI-based angel that follows them as they grow into an adult, making sure that we can protect their health at every step of the way.
Great. Okay. So Bhargav, I have a question. So what do you, there's a lot of students also here listening to us today.
Yeah.
So what do you think the role of students is, and how can they work with AI, kind of tackle, problems that they see around them or they face themselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's fantastic that at a young age we get an early start. You're already thinking about frontier technology. I think the most valuable thing that you can do is just become familiar with the tools, because obviously there's a learning curve associated with any of these technologies. And so the more familiar you become, the more adept you become, the more you can harness this technology. As an engineer, I have my own bias about technology, but I submit even to doctors, even to educators, that somehow technology is always seen as a bad actor in terms of education. And it's unfortunate, because I see technology as a tool to be able to do anything we want to do, and technology is almost independent of how it gets used. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad or negative things, socially negative things or socially positive things. So I like to think of the opportunity in solving major problems using technology. And so as you get familiar with AI and technologies that are kind of going to become part of our lives, if they haven't already, in a significant way, It's about embracing that and learning how to use it. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? What is the ethics of AI? Because that's something that Carnegie Mellon University, as some of you may know, is where they invented artificial intelligence 50, 60 years ago. And at that time, when they started talking about artificial intelligence, nobody understood how a calculator could think like a human being. Like, it made no sense. But they developed all the math, they developed all the science, they developed all the models, the statistics. How do you train a computer to think like a human being? And today, AI is what it is today. So they felt that digital vaccines, when we started talking about digital vaccines, nobody could understand how vaccines could be digital. And we're slowly but surely beginning to prove that it's possible to prevent disease through technology. So what I'm trying to say is that AI can be a tool when you consider the ethics, the science, the application. What problem are you trying to solve? Are these problems that are going to displace human beings? Are they going to enhance human beings? Are they going to work against human beings? You have to think about all these things when you are designing this technology. So you become familiar with the tools, but once you have the ability to work with the tools, I would only submit that you also immerse yourself into the ethics of using technology and understanding what you're trying to do with the technology, and then choosing the right problem that you want to solve. And for that, young children today have countless options. There are huge problems facing humanity, from climate change to inequity in health, in education. Every aspect of life as we know it has massive problems, and so therefore massive opportunity. And so if you can build technology to improve the human condition and reduce human suffering and planetary suffering, then that would be a great use of the privilege that we have in terms of being able to create and design and then offer technology to the world. So that's how I would urge the next generation to think about it.
Awesome. That's really fantastic. And I really hope the students who are here are really seeing this as an inspiration while you create your code and your AI, especially the ones that are participating in the COVID Warrior Challenge. So yeah, thank you, Bhargav, for your time. It was really great to learn and hear more about your work.
My
and
pleasure.
I really hope that, if any of you want to research more about digital vaccines, there's a lot online. So you can, get into the topic and understand it a lot more clearer if you wish, and, really dive deep into the topic of digital vaccine. And now over to Harish to kind of take that through.
I just wanted to say one last thing. In case anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm available. I'm open on Twitter. It's probably the best platform to reach me. Yeah, you can just find me online, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to help.
Great. So we'll leave that link on the chat in a bit.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Over to you, Harish.
Yeah. Thank you, Aditi and Bhargav. It was a wonderful session from you people. So myself, Harish, I work as a lead developer at AI World School, and I'm here to present you about one of our flagship course, which is Virtual Driverless Car. So before I start the presentation, I'll just run you through a visual. Just focus on your screen now.
What is the magic behind driverless cars? How does it work? Want to explore the tech behind it? Welcome to the introduction to self-driving cars. Learn all about the transformational technology and major concepts behind autonomous cars on the cutting edge of robotics, machine learning and artificial intelligence. Starting off with computer vision. In this course we will teach you how to use computer vision to process videos and images using computer vision libraries. You will learn how to track your car in a single lane on a simulated highway from captured video data. Neural networks. You will gain hands-on experience with digits recognition. We will teach you how to train the deep learning neural network model using thousands of digits images and test in real time. Traffic sign recognition. In this course you will learn how to train a neural network to detect traffic signs from across the world. You will learn to train the network with your own custom dataset and test them in real time. Simulator testing. Now moving to the autonomous part of the course. You will learn how to train and run a self-driving car in a custom-built simulator using Unity. You will collect training data by driving the car manually around the track for 2 or 3 laps and train the network using collected data. The trained network will be tested in autonomous mode using the virtual simulator to see how the car drives by itself on the track. So what are you waiting for? Enroll now.
Hope the video was self-explanatory, but still I would like to just run through the course lesson by lesson on my screen. I'll just take 5 minutes for this particular demonstration. So I'll just share my screen now. Yes, so this particular course has got some prerequisites like you need to understand the basic Python syntaxes, and apart from that, everything is explained in depth into the course actually. This course is aimed for children aged above 14 plus. So I'll go through the content now. So in the first lesson, we'll be teaching them about the evolution, how cars evolved, and what are the different autonomy level in the self-driving car technology. And as the name suggests, it's all about self-driving cars. I mean, if you see a real self-driving car on a road, I mean, it looks like a magic, right? For children, they need to understand the tech behind it. That's the whole motive of designing this particular course. So in the first lesson, as I told you, it will all be introductory and theoretical about self-driving cars. And in the second lesson, we teach them about some simple image processing techniques, where you can use these techniques to detect a lane on a highway. Say in the US, you have six-speed highway lanes. So suppose if I give you a video feed of a highway lane, using this image processing techniques, you'll be able to track in which lane the car wants to travel. So the whole objective here is to use image processing on a video frame. So kids learn about this thing in this particular lesson. And then moving on to the third lesson is where we introduce them to the actual neural networks. Say if you're learning any programming language, be it Python, Java, or anything, the first program that you learn is the Hello World program. So similarly, when you enter a neural network or an AI platform, the first program will always this handwritten digit recognition. In this particular program, we teach students about how to train their own neural network using some 16 to 17,000 handwritten image data set. So this data set has got varieties of handwritten digits from different people, and the digits are from 0 to 9. Using this data set, the students will train their own neural network using CNN, which is convolution neural network. And once the training is done, say you're writing a phone number on a piece of paper, and if you show that in front of your camera, the computer will be able to recognize what number is shown. So that's the main objective of this particular lesson. Then moving on to the fourth lesson, where we teach about traffic sign recognition. Like any driverless car, if you take it, needs to understand what is posed in front of it. Like the traffic signs, there'll be different traffic signs, right? It will be a stop sign, it will be a speed limit sign. All these signs the car should be able to perceive. So the main objective is here to understand the traffic signs. The previous lesson and this lesson are quite similar, except for the data set is being changed. There we've been giving you images of handwritten digits. Instead, we give in this particular lesson, we give them the images of traffic signs from different parts of the world. So then moving on to the final lesson, before I move on to the final lesson, I'll just give you a brief about Google Colab. So as you all heard, that AI is mostly powered with GPUs, like most of the processing happens on the GPU. But for this particular course, we wanted to keep the prerequisites simple, like many students wouldn't have a GPU in their laptops or PCs. For this purpose, we are using a Google Colab platform where the computing, everything happens on the cloud. So Google provides us with a computer with TPUs, tensor processing units, and all this code is compatible to run on those TPUs. So all you need is a browser with, the Chrome browser to run this entire course actually. So moving on to the final lesson, I would like to run it on my screen. So I'll just run the script right away. So here we have a simulator. It's just like a gaming environment. Hope it's visible on my screen now. So here you have two different modes. One is the training mode and another is the autonomous mode. So first I'll explain what is the training mode is about. So I click on the training mode. And as you can see, it's just like a gaming environment. Like we are trying to teach children neural networks using game, just like Bhargav mentioned, like teaching using gamification. So I can move this car just using keyboard keys, just like a game. The interesting part here is I have a record button on my top right. You can see that actually it will be a red dot. So when I press my record button, what it does is it actually captures data from the car's feed. I mean, there are a couple of cameras in front of the car, which are actually built into the simulator. So it captures the video frames along with my keyboard inputs. Say if there is a left turn in front of me, obviously I'll be pressing a left button, left arrow key. So that key along with the image is actually stored onto my local computer. In order to train this neural network, I need to drive this car for say 2-3 laps for better performance. But for the sake of this demonstration, what I've done is I've already saved the data on my local system. So I'll just do the autonomous part now. So I've gone to the autonomous mode again. So to show you what the data looks like inside, I'll just open the data. So here you can see there are images which are taken from the simulator is all stored in my local hard drive along with the steering angles actually. So to run this particular thing, I'm using PyCharm, which is a Python interpreter. So here you can see I've written some Python code, and all these Python codes are actually explained in depth in our course. So I'll just run the code for you now. So it uses a convolution neural network from NVIDIA's self-driving cars. So if assuming if you deploy this particular train model on a real car, it should be able to run. But for the purpose of this particular course, we are using it on a simulator. So it takes a bit of time to load. Just give me a minute. And yeah, it started running. So previously we were using the training mode. So now we're going to go into the autonomous mode. So I click on autonomous. So here you can see the car is actually running by itself. I'm not giving any keyboard inputs. On the left bottom on my screen, you can see the PyCharm ID is printing out some values, like it's actually sending out the steering and acceleration inputs to the simulator. And hence the car is able to make its own decisions. The car will be sending the video feed from the simulator to the Python script. So that's how this data interaction happens, and we are able to get a real-time self-driving car here. To further address this thing, like we also have like a competition where if you run this, if you train your own neural network and submit the neural network onto our platform, we run this on the simulator, and for every lap we also note down the timing. All this is done by autonomous systems. And so we note down the lap timing. So based on the lap timings, you'll be on the leaderboard in our website. So that's the whole competition is all about. So if you want to improve the speed, say right now the car is running at 10 miles per hour. If I had to increase the speed, I'll also have to increase my model accuracy. For that, we'll have to do lots of hyperparameter tuning on our neural network. So that is all covered in the course actually. So with this, my demo is over. I'll hand the mic back over to Aishwarya.
Thank you, Mr. Harish. Thank you for the wonderful demonstration. Next, we would like the audience to take part in practical application of AI developed by Impressed. I would share a link in the chat box. This link will lead you to a form which will ask you 3 simple questions. You need to select from any of the multiple choice answers. So I'm sharing it in chat. Please do try it out. It wouldn't take more than 30 seconds. So kindly fill in the form. It means a lot to us. It would be great if you can fill the form, because it is just, you need not type or write in anything. It's just selecting the multiple choice answers. Yeah, by the meantime they fill in, I think we can go into the Q&A session. Over the course of the session, we have collected some questions from the audience. And now we will look into the questions one by one. So the first question is to Mr. Bhargav. So the question from Sanil Ram is, does it require any medical or nutrition partners, or will it be a home or region-based health practice?
That's a great question. So this requires, I mean, it was developed based on so our collaborators from Hopkins, from Stanford School of Medicine, from Oxford University and the University of Michigan, Baylor College of Medicine. So a lot of nutrition, gastroenterologists, endocrinologists have all kind of been involved in the creation of this platform. And this platform, once how it gets used in schools is schools don't need to have any resident expertise in personalized nutrition or personalized medicine, but the AI basically takes care of all that. So once the school becomes a partner of this project at Carnegie Mellon University, then they get access to the curriculum, and the children are able to automatically complete those milestones on a weekly basis.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Mr. Bhargav. The next question is, are these digital vaccines mainly for children, or is it for all age groups? That's from Shravan and Neelakandan.
It's a great question. So digital vaccines, at least based on neurocognitive, it's called neuroplasticity. That means our brains are actually not rigid and organs. They are almost, if you look at it, it's the equivalent of any muscle. So your brain, the number of neural connections and synapses can actually change as we grow older, as we learn something. But certain regions or certain connections become stronger over a period of time. Now we have focused, all our evidence with 5 randomized controlled trials and tracking children for almost 10 years with over many thousands of children around the world. And the focus has been pediatric population or children specifically. But neuroplasticity as a biological mechanism also exists in adults. In fact, the brain is probably one of the few organs that will regenerate and can kind of transform itself throughout the lifespan of an individual. But the first few years, until probably around the 10, 15, or actually the first 5 years are the most fertile years, where the brain is developing very fast, very responsive, learning new things and establishing new connections. And then it begins to kind of, plateau off as we age. We are now exploring digital vaccines for things like dementia, for ADHD, in children, but dementia in adults and elderly population, Alzheimer's disease, so on and so forth. But the 10 years and 11 years of hard research and evidence of how we can stimulate the brain and how the brain changes and how we can do it safely. The one thing that you can remember, and it's important to understand, is that in medicine there is always the concept of what in pharmacological science there's always the concept of what is called toxicity. So even our neurostimulation technology, at the right dose, at that precisely delivered dose, can deliver benefits. Too much of it can cause problems. Too little of it will not deliver kind of the output. It's kind of like how we're taking one shot of the vaccine and then a second booster, and then after a period of time we're needing another booster. That's kind of how we're doing COVID vaccines. But and that's for all population, for adults, not necessarily for children. But we're developing digital vaccines for children with this mild dose, at the right dose. Even too much of this can cause harm, but we're doing it at exactly the right dose based on all the science through which we're able to protect health, prevent COVID, reduce the risk of diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, cancer, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav, for the insight into digital vaccination.
Sure.
Next is a question from Sanjana. I think too many questions are focused on Mr. Bhargav because digital vaccine is something really new and exciting. So the question from Sanjana is, I'm very much interested in entering the field of digital vaccine. She's asking which course should be joined to get into that field.
That's a great question. Digital vaccines have emerged at the intersection of medicine and technology. So there are two ways to approach any field that is emerging at the intersection of two major fields. And this intersection between technology and medicine is just starting. It's a super exciting area. As I showed you, the US FDA has now approved again for ADHD treatment. That means you don't have to take a drug to treat ADHD. There are now digital therapeutics for pain management, for insomnia. I mean, we are developing vaccines for cancer, for diabetes. So there are many specializations that you can use and approach to arrive at this intersection. One would be neuroscience, if you're interested in neuroscience. The other would be, or just medicine, if you're looking particularly within medicine. You could be a biologist, you could be a neuroscientist, or you could be an MD, a doctor. The other aspect of it could be from the engineering side, from the software engineering side. So you could become an AI-oriented kind of a researcher, data science and operations research. So all the way to create any drug requires or any medical intervention requires a lot of statistics. So you could become a statistician and then still kind of figure out how to apply that to epidemiological studies, so public health. So there are many different ways. So there isn't one, but now the convergence is also creating biotechnology, biomedical engineering kind of areas that really kind of are more interdisciplinary by design. So you could consider those also. So I think biomedical engineering or biotechnology will give you kind of a crossover kind of a view on this space. But there are no specific courses for digital vaccines yet. Maybe over the years we'll try to create a curriculum for the category and the space so that it really pulls all these things together.
And one last question.
Sure.
The question is, will there be any reaction after taking the digital vaccine? Just like how we take our dose and we have hand pain, other things.
Oh, Yes.
For you.
So you're talking, there will be a reaction. If you're
Yeah.
talking about a side effect, the side effects are very minimal. It is, as I said, theoretically possible that neurostimulation can actually overstimulate the brain, right? And that can lead to a lot of complications, increasing blood flow to specific regions of the brain. So theoretically, we've never experienced it in all our years of research, but theoretically, you could stimulate a part of the brain repeatedly through these repetitive kind of loops, and you can cause a lot of harm. But that's where the medical approach to identifying what is the right dose, where the side effects are almost non-existent. So there won't be any pain. You won't feel any pain. There's no needle. The neurostimulation is actually very subtle, and but the benefits also happen over a period of many exposures or many dosages. So unlike a vaccine that you take for COVID, you take one shot and then you come back after several weeks and then you take another shot, depending on which vaccine you take. And then maybe after 1 year, you take another booster to kind of boost the immune system. Here is only 20 to 30 minutes of being able to sit in front of an iPad or a smartphone or a computer and spend half an hour. So yes, it does put a little strain from a medical perspective. We have to evaluate every consequence, whether it's strain on the retina, whether it is psychological impact in terms of children playing with these games. What happens if they lose? Do they feel bad? So we have to consider every single kind of outcome. So that's the rigor of vaccines is very high. I think today a lot of people know a lot about vaccines, but actually don't know enough about the science behind how rigorous it is proven before something becomes a vaccine. So we are applying that same standard to technology and making sure that the side effects are minimal, and we quantify it as a risk in terms of 1 in 100 million people or 100 million children may have a headache after a dose, right? So we have to quantify those things as part of randomized controlled trials and published evidence. But so far, to answer your question, the pain, it doesn't hurt. It's a very, very light dose, almost side effect free vaccine.
Thank you for that wonderful answer, Mr. Bhargav.
Sure.
Now we have one more question that is like, they say that Mr. Uday says that he's really interested in cars and he wants to know how he can join the VDC course. For that, I'd like to share my screen. You can go to this website, AI School of India, and you can register on it, get a free demo, and then explore about the different courses that we have. We have multiple courses in this platform, and you can enroll in this course to learn more about the VDC course. There were also a couple of doubts regarding the AI COVID warriors. We will send the answers to the registered email IDs. Again, you can click on this AI COVID warriors link to take you to that particular website, and you can register for that competition. There's one more question from Arpan. Can everybody get the AI courses, or people specifically related to certain age group can only get it? Answering to your question, we have the course designed right from age 7 to 18 plus. So it is across grade ages 7 to 18 plus. So age doesn't matter. As you see on my screen, we have designed it for different ages, and even mothers can also register and get themselves updated with the latest AI happenings. So those were the questions. Thank you everyone for joining. Before I wind up, I would like to share one more thing. As a part of AI COVID Warrior Contest, we conduct webinars every Saturday. So on 17th July Saturday, there's going to be another webinar, and which is going to be, the guest is going to be Miss Lara Orlante, and she's a research assistant at EPFL, and they are currently doing a research on COVID app, which is an app that studies about the human cough using an AI algorithm so that we can help prevent the COVID at an early stage. So we will send the link for this webinar to all the registered mail IDs. I would again like to thank one and all for joining this session. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. Great to be a part of this, and congratulations on all the work you're doing, and all the best to all the young AI geniuses that we have on the group and on the call. So looking forward to everything that you're going to do. Thank you.
Super. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.